If you're an autofilled jungler and need immediate help, skip to 11 minutes and 38 seconds. Hello and welcome to the introductory jungle guide for Season 10. In this video, we're going to go over beginner level junglers, itemization, runes, and major changes to the jungle, important jungle paths, how to gank properly, as well as how to play against other junglers. For the beginner level junglers, I would strongly recommend starting with Warwick, as he has a lot of built-in sustain in his champion kit, which makes it very hard to die to jungle monsters. There are of course many more options when it comes to jungling. Early game duelists like Xin Zhao, juggernauts like Warwick, divers like Vi, tanks like Zac, assassins like Rengar, mages like Karthus, and late game duelists like Master Yi. Once you have selected a jungler, the runes and itemization that you build on them will enhance their capabilities. Let's start with the runes. If you're playing a tank with crowd control abilities, you'll want to pick up the Aftershock Keystone, as will grant you a ton of armor and magic resist when you dive into the enemy team. In this example, Zac slingshots himself into the enemy team and relies on Aftershock to give him the durability that he needs to survive the fight. Alternatively, you can also pick up the Guardian Keystone, as it will grant a shield to both you and your allies when you get attacked by the enemy team, as in this example where Amumu's shields rise when the enemy Fiddlesticks attacks him. If you're playing an assassin, consider picking up the Electrocute Keystone, as it will grant additional burst damage, helping you assassinate targets, as in this example where Eve relies on Electrocute to take down the enemy Lucian. An alternative for mage junglers is Dark Harvest, which will deal extra damage to low health targets, as in this example where Karthus relies on Dark Harvest to help with executing the enemy Katarina from afar. For junglers that want 3 quick auto attacks, Hail of Blades is the niche keystone that will fulfill their needs, as in this example where Xin Zhao relies on Hail of Blades to trigger a quick knockup, allowing him to take down the enemy Fiora. The Predator Keystone will provide a burst of mobility for junglers that can make use of the added mobility, as in this example where Hecarim activates Predator to run down the enemy Diana and take her down. An alternative keystone for increased mobility on champions that tend to get kited is Fleet Footwork. In this example, Dr. Mundo uses the increased mobility from Fleet Footwork to take down members of the enemy team. For junglers that want to get into extended fights with the enemy team, you may want to consider the Press the Attack or Conqueror Keystone, as in this example where Master Yi relies on the Conqueror Keystone to fight against the enemy Shyvana and Kassadin at the same time. An alternative keystone for increased damage output is Lethal Tempo, as in this example where Nocturne relies on Lethal Tempo to increase his attack speed during the gank. All of these keystones have nuances that make it a lot more complicated to figure out which one is the best one for your champion, but to keep it simple, I'm going to say that if you intend to have an extended fight with the enemy team, take Conqueror. If you intend to kill opponents quickly, take Electrocute. And if you intend to tank a lot of damage and have crowd control, take Aftershock. Now let's talk about some of the minor runes that you will need to know about when you start jungling. You'll want to take attack speed, damage, and armor on virtually all junglers. This is because all junglers will always be attacking the jungle camps with auto attacks even if they use abilities. If your primary concern in teamfights is survivability, consider taking up Tenacity, Nullifying Orb, and Bone Plating. If you want increased damage output against opponents, consider taking Coup de Grace or one of its 2 alternatives. Note that Gathering Storm requires that your game be a long one in order to be effective, but if you find that your games are getting long, you might want to consider picking it up. If you want increased mobility, consider picking up Relentless Hunter, Celerity, and Water Walking. Note that water walking is only good in the river, but is generally good on junglers because they spend a lot of time in the river. If you find that you rely on your ultimate to make plays, you might want to consider picking up Presence of Mind or Ultimate Hunter. Both of these runes will reduce the cooldowns on your ultimate ability, allowing you to make plays more often. Lastly, if you want improved survivability through healing, consider picking up Ravenous Hunter. This is the strongest healing rune in the game that is not a keystone, and personally I think it is broken. Now let's jump into the itemization. If your jungler primarily relies on auto attacks to deal damage to a single target, pick up Hunter's Machete. On the other hand, if your jungler relies on abilities to deal damage to targets, pick up Hunter's Talisman. Note that Hunter's Talisman can be used on some champions to attack 2 jungle camps at once, allowing you to benefit from the increased healing, as we see in this example with Hecarim here. If you want to improve your ganking capabilities, pick up the Stalker's Blade, which will reduce your opponent's move speed while increasing yours, allowing you to close the gap very quickly. On the other hand, if you want improved dueling capabilities, pick up the Skirmisher Saber, which will reduce your opponent's damage output while adding true damage to your attacks. You can further upgrade your jungle item to Blood Razor to increase the damage output on your auto attacks. If you want to tank damage for your team, build Cinderhulk, as it will provide more health as you build durability items. If you want to increase the damage output of physical damage abilities, you'll get the Warrior Enchantment. And if you want to increase the damage output of your magic abilities, you'll want to get the Runic Echoes. The rest of the itemization options will depend on what you want to achieve for your champion. If you want to improve your mobility, consider some of these items, as in this example where Olaf uses Righteous Glory to close the gap towards the enemy Ornn and slow him down, allowing his team to take him down. If you want to improve your ability to tank damage, consider some of these items, as in this example where Dr. Mundo stacks a bunch of tank items and face tanks all the damage that is thrown his way as he chases down the enemy Lucian and kills him. If you want to improve your on-hit damage output, consider some of these items, as in this example where Master Yi uses Gunsu's Rage Blade to amplify his damage output against the enemy team, allowing him to take on Shyvana and Kassadin at the same time. If you're looking for one single item to dramatically improve your survivability, consider some of these items, as in this example where Fiddlesticks uses Zhonya's Hourglass to zone members of the enemy team away with his ultimate, allowing his team to take out most members of the enemy team in this teamfight. If you want improved survivability through healing and regeneration, consider some of these items, as in this example where Aatrox uses Death's Dance to heal up as he's fighting the enemy Swain and Caitlyn. Now let's take a look at the jungle for Season 10. The red buff provides true damage and is slow, which will help with ganks. The blue buff provides mana regeneration and cooldown reduction, which allows you to keep using your abilities. The raptors and wolves are similar in value, although raptors are harder to clear, and the grump and krugs are similar in value, although the krugs are incredibly difficult to clear. The Scuttle Crab provides gold, experience, health, and mana, making it a priority target. Dragons as a whole are very valuable. Don't worry about the details of each and every single dragon, but do try to clear them as best as you can to secure the benefits that they provide for your team. Securing consecutive dragons will generally stack the game in your favor. The Rift Herald is very hard to clear, but be sure to take advantage of its true damage weak spot on its back. As soon as you've cleared it, collect its buff and it will become the most valuable ally that you have in the game. Once activated, the Rift Herald will clear minions and demolish turrets as it makes its way towards the enemy nexus. It is often the only ally that you will get that understands how to win the game. Both the Elder Dragon and Baron are high priority jungle monsters, so do try to take them for your team and prevent the enemy team from taking them. When you're just starting out in the jungle, there are 4 main jungle paths that you need to know about. The first jungle path is the blue side clear. This is where you clear the blue buff, the grump, and the wolves in order to hit level 3. This path is the easiest way to hit level 3 while retaining the most amount of health. The next jungle path is the red side clear. This is where you start at the red buff, then clear the krugs and the raptors in order to hit level 3. Note that the red side clear is actually very hard to do as the krugs and raptors deal a ton of damage. Junglers should not attempt this clear unless they have fast clears and some built-in sustain. Next we have the full jungle clear. This is where you clear the blue side of your jungle as well as the red side of your jungle, clearing all jungle camps in order to hit level 4. When doing this jungle path, you basically decided that you're not going to make any plays at level 3 and will wait to buy your first item before making plays. Lastly, we have the double buff grump clear. This is where you clear the red buff, the blue buff, and the grump in order to hit level 3. This jungle path is the fastest way to secure both buffs while hitting level 3 and retaining the most amount of health. Now if you're wondering whether you should start at the red buff or the blue buff, the general answer is that you'll want to start on the side of the map where your AD carry and support can damage the first jungle buff for you. So on the blue side of the map, I will start at the bottom side red buff, and on the red side of the map, I will start at the bottom side blue buff. Once you have completed your initial jungle path, it is time to make some plays. And plays fall into one of 3 categories, which are ganking, invades, and objectives. Ganking is an essential part of jungling, and what it means is ambushing and killing enemy laners. There are many factors to consider when ganking, but to keep it simple, look at a lane and evaluate whether or not you should gank it this way. Positioning, that is your opponent pushed up near your ally's turret. Crowd control, that is between you and your ally, do one of you have crowd control to disable the opponent, making it easier to kill him. And lastly, mobility, how quickly can you get on top of the opponent before they retreat to their tower. If 2 or more of these factors are in your favor, go gank that lane. Another factor to consider in ganking is the approach that you can take as you arrive in the lane. The most common approach is to arrive in a lane through the river, hugging the walls and the brushes, trying to be hidden until you are in the lane. This is the default approach for all junglers. Another approach is to arrive in the lane that you are ganking through the lane itself. This requires very high mobility or stealth to pull this off. A variation of this approach is to arrive and hide in the brush of the lane that you are ganking, while that lane is slowly pushing back towards your ally. Lastly, you can gank the opponent from behind his turret. This requires sneaky gameplay that depends on you getting into the enemy jungle undetected. While the target enemy champion is looking at what's in front of him, you will come in from behind and gank him. Note that in all cases where you do pull off a successful gank, you will want to stay around and soak up as much gold and experience from the minions as you can. The reason we do this is that the experience in the jungle has fallen off dramatically in Season 10, which makes you rely on ganks and soaking up experience in lane in order to not fall behind. Invading the enemy jungle falls into 2 categories. The first one is trying to steal their jungle camps, setting them behind. The enemy jungler's buffs are the most valuable jungle camps that you can steal from the enemy jungler. Outside of that, you can also try stealing the raptors, the wolves, and the gromp. If you want to put the enemy jungler further behind, leave one of the small monsters alive, as that will delay the respawning of that camp. Alternatively, you can also invade with the intention of killing the enemy jungler. This requires tracking the enemy jungler and predicting where they are going to be in order to intercept them. Tracking the movement of the enemy jungler is a complex topic that is beyond the scope of this beginner guide, but know that this is a topic that you can explore. Focusing on objectives is very straightforward. It means taking high priority jungle monsters like the Scuttle Crab, the Rift Herald, the Dragons, and the Baron. The highest priority objectives would be taking down enemy turrets, as that is how you win the game. Once again, this is why the Rift Herald is such a valuable objective that you want to secure. And now we have all the details that we need to go over how to play around the enemy jungler. There are a handful of reactionary plays that you can do when you spot the enemy jungler on the map. When you see the enemy jungler active on the top side of the map, you should be doing something on the bottom side of the map. For example, you can secure vision around the dragon and then try to clear it. You can take the free Scuttle Crab in the bottom side river. You can go for a gank in the bottom lane knowing that the enemy jungler will not be in the area. Alternatively, when you see the enemy jungler active on the bottom side of the map, you can do something on the top side. For example, you can take the enemy topside jungle and take his jungle camps. Try to take his buffs and clear his jungle camps while leaving the small monsters alive. Alternatively, while the enemy jungler is on the bottom side of the map, try to take the Rift Herald and use it after your next gank. Lastly, if you keep your eye on the enemy jungler as he goes back into his own jungle, you might have an idea of where he's going to be next, and you could consider invading his jungle and trying to kill him. Now I know that was a lot of information to digest in one sitting, so be sure to go over parts of the video again if you are not able to absorb it all right now. If you are an autofilled jungler, pick Warwick, take this jungle path, build these items, gank low health targets, every time you kill an opponent try to take an objective, and keep doing this until you win the game. If you like the content of this channel, do subscribe by hitting the subscribe button as well as the little bell icon to be notified of all new videos that are coming out. If you want to support the channel directly and help keep things going, there are a number of options available. In the About section of the channel, there's a Patreon link that you can join to directly contribute towards the channel, as well as a Streamlabs link. You can also join the channel through YouTube memberships, which will unlock a number of perks, including shoutouts at the end of the videos, videos on topics that you specifically want to have covered, as well as gameplay reviews of games that you want to have reviewed to find out what you could have done differently. There's also a community tab that I've opened for people that want to provide some input, for example, on how long you want the videos to be. And there's also a Discord channel that opened recently, so if you want to drop by and say hi or just chat with other folks who are subscribed to the channel, you can drop in here. If you want to see more videos like the ones that you're seeing right now, you can go to the playlist section of the channel to see a playlist on strategies that you can use in your games, examples of decision making in game, as well as full game analysis. I highly recommend checking out all three of these if you want to learn more about the game and develop your macro capabilities.